This is an illegal gambling operation and sports rigging operation that spanned the course of years. The FBI led a coordinated takedown across 11 states to arrest over 30 individuals today responsible for this case, which is very much ongoing.
What's happening right now in the NBA is more than a sports scandal. It's a perfect storm where a multi-billion-dollar industry, the thrill of the game, and the science of addiction have collided.
You would get sports players to actually fix games when they would get into gambling problems.
We're seeing the fallout. Players banned, coaches arrested, and federal investigations with ties to organized crime and blackmail. But this is exposing something far more concerning beneath the surface. Sure, we watch sports thinking, it's a game, but it's an honest one. But what if a much bigger, more insidious game is being played on the players and ultimately on all of us?
The Blazers wasn't gonna win anyway.
Gambling isn't new, but its evolution is alarming. The modern era has normalized what used to be a back of the club behavior, putting it directly in the palm of your hand. It's created a 24/7 risk-reward environment our brains were never designed to handle. DraftKings, BetMGM, even Kalshi. It's everywhere. You've seen the ads, even here on YouTube.
Do you not want to be a massive loser? Then gamble, you idiot.
And even though I've disabled gambling ads on all of my videos, it wouldn't surprise me if you saw one on this video, cause that's just the way it seems to work.
Our commercials have fire and cars. Do you want a fire car? Then gamble.
Today, we're connecting the dots. We'll break down the gambling scandal unraveling the NBA, the explosive rise of online gambling and sports betting, and the ancient psychological impulse it exploits. And finally, we'll identify the line between a bad habit and a diagnosable addictive disorder and what to do about it.
Gambling is huge. Why do you think the NBA and all of these organizations now are being involved with gambling? Money.
And if you're wondering what the hell all of this has to do with medicine, hang on, because you're gonna find out. We're talking a massive FBI investigation into alleged wire fraud and money laundering conspiracies. The investigation is ongoing and no one has been officially convicted, so these are all allegations at this point. But if you're a returning viewer, do me a solid and give the video a like and let me know if you are team double or nothing or not. If you are new to the channel, welcome. Watch the video first, and if so inclined afterwards, join our army of intelligent interns learning about healthcare at the end. And don't forget to subscribe with notifications so that you can be alerted when I post content related to your health. Now that you know the odds, let's get into it. Nevertheless, this involves a ring including coach Chauncey Billups, player Terry Rozier, and a former NBA player and coach Damon Jones. The accusations are twofold. First, the basketball side, using their insider status to give gamblers an illegal edge on games. As legal expert Ryan Smith explains,
they had this information about who was sitting, who wasn't playing, who might be tanking. So this person used it, gave it to that person, gave it to that person. And folks, it's just like insider trading. It's just like the kind of thing you see on Wall Street that every day you say, this is how the rich get richer.
This is the exact same type of insider trading scheme that was first brought to the public's attention with the Jontay Porter case last year. His was a classic prop bet fraud. Porter allegedly faked an illness, left games early, and tipped off associates who then heavily bet that he'd underperform on specific stats like points and rebounds. By not playing, he guaranteed those underbets would win.
Big advantage you can get with unreported injury information.
But think about if you could get all your homies rich by telling them, yo,
no shit,
bet $10,000 on my under, this one game I'm gonna act like I got an injury.
It was flagged when sports books noticed a massive suspicious amount of money on those obscure bets.
I did $50 on the Kings.
Yeah, I did 80 grand on the guy who just got called up from the G Leagues under.
What? $80,000 on his under?
On who? On who? Jontay
Porter has been banned for life from the NBA, pled guilty in court, and is awaiting sentencing.
Put 80 grand on his under points?
Why the fuck would you do that? You just gotta take him out of the game.
Wait.
My God. How much did you win?
$1.1 million.
You just won $1.1 million? You just won $1 million.
Shut up. Don't yell.
Dude, you should be yelling.
Shut up.
So why was this possible in the first place? Well, the explosion of prop betting. A player no longer needs to throw an entire game, which is obvious and difficult. They just need to manipulate their own small statistical output for a very short time. It's a precision scam that's much harder to detect.
It's never about winning or losing. It's about what? the point spread.
The fact that Terry Rozier is accused of similar actions in the FBI case shows this corruption runs much deeper than only one player. And beyond the court, the investigation also covers the poker side, where these figures allegedly used their fame as lures in high-stakes mafia-run poker games. Billups, in particular, was considered a face card.
One of his nicknames with the crew that was running these things, according to the feds, was Chum. And if you guys know what chum is, if you're a fisherman, you throw bait into the water to attract the bigger fish.
Who wouldn't want to play, poker with an NBA player? Who wouldn't?
And of course, these games were rigged, using X-ray tables and high-tech glasses to cheat victims out of millions.
Again, oldest trick in the book. They're more sophisticated now. If you go back to the movie Casino, remember? When De Niro caught the guy, they had the little, device and they were...
So why was all of this possible? Well, it reveals a classic criminal playbook. Organized crime deliberately targets and grooms athletes, often from a young age. They befriend them, exploit their addictive tendencies, or even just their innate competitive thrill to draw them into their network. As ex-mobster Michael Francese explains, the same fire that makes them great athletes can also make them easy prey.
You got to understand, with athletes, gambling is an extension of their competitiveness. They raise the stakes when they gamble. Athletes are easy prey. They get themselves in trouble, they owe a debt, and they got to do whatever they got to do to get out of it.
And that's where this trap is sprung. The gambling debt is used against them as leverage, creating a system of blackmail. So when you step back, all these seemingly separate scandals, some corrupting the game from within through modern betting markets, others entangling it with organized crime, are really just different symptoms of the same disease. See, when the Porter story broke, it seemed simple. One player breaking rules. But the FBI case reveals a darker truth, that a player like Porter could have been coerced by his own gambling debts.
Don't put your phone, shut the fuck up, you don't tell anyone this happened. Can we just hang out for normal guys?
And that exposes the real issue. The engine driving the whole machine. Our collective thirst for a cheap thrill, for a quick win. When we start valuing excitement over integrity, that mindset creates the debt. And that same value system turns the debt into leverage. And this isn't a closed loop. It's a contagion.
Bets were placed using straw bettors, guys that they just brought into bet, to bypass betting limits and maximize profits. But again, what are you doing? You're making the scheme known to more people.
The exploitation spreads, and before you realize it, everyone, from the mob bookie to the player to the fan, is caught in the same cycle.
Darko calls a timeout here, and we have the now infamous eyedropper scene. He would return to this game, but checks out for good with 4:20 left in the second quarter, where TSN runs a full-screen FanDuel ad.
This turns an athlete from a villain into a victim, trapped in an impossible situation. This isn't just about individual greed. It's the inevitable outcome of a culture that worships money. That big game, the game of profit, has completely consumed the little games. It's a value system that ends up exploiting everyone it touches. And if this is happening in the NBA, it's a warning sign for every major sport, bro.
And the best they can do, because the NBA, for better or for worse, just like all sports organizations now, are tied into sports betting, and sports betting is a part of our society right now. All they can do is do the best they can to make sure this never happens again. I don't know if it's possible to ensure that it will never happen again.
You're saying that bell can't be unrung. It's to me, it's simply put, you're probably right, because it's just too much money and people ain't gonna walk away from it.
A scandal like this hits harder in sports because gambling has always revolved around one question: skill versus luck. And regardless, when we go to a casino, we all kind of know the truth. The games are mathematically rigged for the house to win. We expect that. It's part of the deal. Sports, though, are supposed to be different. The NBA isn't scripted like the WWE. These games are built on the promise of honest effort and peak athleticism. So when a player is in on the bet, that's not just breaking a rule, it's shattering the entire illusion of a fair contest. And as ex-NBA ref Tim Donaghy, who was involved in a betting scandal of his own, warns, what we're seeing now might just be the tip of the iceberg.
It's going to spread like wildfire, and you're going to find out that this is a lot bigger than it is right now, and it's pretty big.
Where there's smoke, is there fire? Are there multiple cases of this going on? Is there more?
As fans, this kind of betrayal cuts deep because we have an unwritten psychological contract with the athletes. We invest our emotion, our trust, and even part of our identity in the promise of genuine competition. When that contract breaks, it doesn't just feel like being tricked. On a biological level, our brains register that betrayal as a psychosocial stressor, spiking cortisol, shifting our experience from awe to cynicism. The arena stops feeling like a place of wonder and starts feeling like just another arena for manipulation and profit.
And it's not going to stop happening. Why? Because today, athletes have more access to gambling than they did in my day.
And that's where the spiral starts. What feels harmless at first, just a little action, a little thrill, starts to slide into something darker. It's exactly why gambling has become more pervasive and more dangerous than ever before. So let's talk about gambling itself, the psychology behind its powerful allure, and how our modern world has completely, no pun intended, changed the game. To understand how we got here, let's look at a bit of the history with gambling. Gambling is a primal human instinct. We have evidence of it in ancient China with Keno, dice in Rome, and many other civilizations. It started not as a vice, but as something more profound. Divination. People used marked sticks to seek knowledge from the gods, to get a glimpse of the future. It was tied to destiny itself, and from that sacred act, it was only a short step to betting on the outcome. Gambling has always lived in that strange tension between reverence and control. What began as a way to understand fate slowly became a way to manipulate it. For centuries, this has stood as the ultimate warning about gambling's power to corrupt. But here's the key. For thousands of years, this urge was kept in check by a simple fact. Gambling was a social, physical activity. And until very recently, you had to go to a racetrack, a casino, or a betting parlor. That journey, that change of environment, acted as a built-in speed bump for your brain's impulses. Fast forward to today. Gambling is a global giant. The entire industry generates well over $500 billion, with a T, dollars annually worldwide. The US alone brought in $66.5 billion in revenue in just 2023. But the engine driving modern growth is unequivocally online. While the global industry is vast, the online segment, sports betting and digital casinos, is now a $100 billion a year market by itself, and the fastest growing part of the ecosystem. For a deeper dive into the business mechanics, I highly recommend CoffeeZilla's recent investigation. He does a fantastic job of breaking down how this system really operates. My point is, the internet has fundamentally changed gambling from a social planned event to a solitary digital impulse. Now, here's the medical angle. That old social model required executive function, planning, impulse control. Your brain's prefrontal cortex was in charge, at least somewhat. A smartphone app bypasses all of that. One click and gambling becomes an immediate impulse, leading to far more rash decisions. Worse, your phone itself becomes a conditioned cue. It's no longer just a phone, it's a 24/7 potential portal to a bet, constantly triggering cravings throughout your day. The environment has been engineered to be maximally addictive. Now, let's add the fuel. Social media. Here, we're constantly bombarded with online gambling ads in our feeds, and in a twisted way, it's a perfect fit. Both gambling and social media share the same goal: maximize engagement, keep you on the app, spending your attention, or in this case, your money, making the platform or house richer.
And what these companies have mastered is a behavior loop called the scarcity loop, a cycle that's almost impossible to escape once you're trapped within it.
Both social media platforms and gambling companies use the same psychological principle: variable reward schedules. Pioneered by B.F. Skinner, this is the most powerful driver of addictive behavior. Unpredictable, random rewards. A win, a like, a notification, keep you in a state of hyper-focused anticipation, constantly pulling the lever for the next hit. Research shows the near-miss effect tricks your brain into treating almost winning like a real win, flooding dopamine and fueling that just one more try compulsion.
Because the faster and easier it is to place another bet, the more money gambling companies make. That's why they intentionally removed all friction to spend from one-tap betting, instant deposits, and autoplay feature.
When we talk about addictive behavior in the brain, we hear a lot about dopamine. But many people get it wrong. It's not just the feel-good neurochemical you get from receiving a reward. Critically, as Dr. Andrew Huberman explains, dopamine is about the anticipation of a reward. It links desire with taking action.
Desire for things increases dopamine, but then our level of dopamine drops below baseline, and it's that drop below baseline that triggers the motivation to bring that dopamine level back up by going and pursuing the thing that you wanted in the first place.
This provides the motivation to push through the challenges for a potential payoff. In this sense, dopamine serves not so much as the prize itself, but as the fuel for the driven person you become along the way. But since both gambling and social media hijack the system independently, you can imagine the damage their baby, online betting, can do. The algorithm becomes a digital slot machine, engineered to mimic a flow state, but one that sucks you in and steals your time and money. And most importantly, you bypass the real-world process of growth, the critical work of building character and making progress that gives life its purpose, and instead get a direct, effortless dopamine hit. This trains your brain to expect constant, immediate gratification, making the natural rhythm of real achievement feel wrong, even frustrating. And over time, this can lower your brain's baseline dopamine level, which is a recipe for anxiety, depression, and even stronger cravings.
Okay, so there's pleasure, then there's lack of pleasure. But it's worse than that, because it's not just lack of pleasure. That drop below baseline triggers the desire and the pursuit for what? For more.
And so very often there's not even a conscious thought of it. Much like sometimes we get hungry and we, you know how you go in the refrigerator and you open it up and you look and then you close it again and say, oh, let me look again. You just start doing it. So sometimes it becomes even very much unconscious.
This is the core of how our chronically online, convenience-based world is rewiring us. The logical result? When faced with normal, real-world stressors that require patience and hard work, a brain, trained by this system, just isn't equipped to handle it. It hasn't practiced the muscle of perseverance. You can't help but see the connection to our current mental health epidemic. And the sneak attack goes even deeper, because social media doesn't just mimic gambling's hooks, it acts as a psychological amplifier, hitting multiple deep-seated human triggers at once. First, it exploits social proof. Basically, our brain's tendency to treat group behavior as a survival shortcut. When you see a trending bet or a friend's lock, your brain doesn't see risk, it sees it's in group onto something. Think, who's in group 7? This bypasses logic and taps directly into FOMO. Second, it creates a dual reinforcement loop. You're not just betting to win money, you're betting to win social validation. Posting a winning bet slip and getting likes combines two of the most powerful dopamine hits into one hyper-addictive behavior. Finally, it works through constant micro exposures. Gambling is no longer a separate activity, it's woven into the cultural conversation of your feed. Celebs and influencers get paid big money to promote these apps. The ads are everywhere. This constant low-level exposure desensitizes you, eroding the mental barriers that once made it feel taboo. In short, social media doesn't just sell you gambling, it sells the idea that it's normal, social, and in sports, even essential for fandom. And this is especially concerning because the primary online audience is young, impressionable people. Smartphones allow them to bypass the age restrictions that were once enforced at physical casinos. We're effectively priming developing neural circuitry for addictive tendencies.
What they do is make free-to-play mobile games that are like online casinos. But instead of betting real money, you buy digital tokens with real money to play.
But let's not get ahead of ourselves. For most people, it's still an occasional habit, even as user rates rise. But with the line between doom scrolling and doom betting becoming increasingly blurred, how do you know when it's actually becoming a problem? While many people gamble, the industry's profits are disproportionately fueled by a relatively small group. A staggering 60% of gambling revenue comes from the roughly 1% of adults with a gambling disorder. For most of history, problem gambling was seen as a moral failure. That changed in the 80s and 90s when the medical community reclassified classified it in the DSM as a cognitive disorder, shifting it from a character flaw to a diagnosable condition. It isn't just a financial issue, it's a public health crisis, rippling outward to increased rates of mental illness, suicide, and devastating secondary effects like broken relationships, financial distress, and crime.
We have to realize gambling is an addiction. So the addiction of it is what makes you make illogical decisions.
Understanding it as a medical condition helps explain why it's so much more than poor choices. It's not just about willpower. The hijacked dopamine system drives compulsion, and chronic gambling also activates the brain's stress circuits in ways that can wreak havoc on the body. When these stress systems are constantly activated, your body's core regulator, the HPA or the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, gets dysregulated. The result? Heightened anxiety, poor decision-making, and long-term health issues like hypertension, cardiovascular strain, and immune dysfunction. This sets the stage for a vicious cycle. You gamble to escape stress, but losses pile on even more pressure, pulling you back in again. And as I said, this cycle is powered by gambling's unpredictable nature and intermittent reinforcement, and is often amplified by cognitive distortions like the illusion that you can beat the system, as well as personality traits like impulsivity and pre-existing mental health issues. So, how is this disorder diagnosed? There's no blood test. Clinicians look for a consistent pattern of behavior, defined by symptoms such as impaired control over gambling, gambling taking increasing priority over other life interests and daily activities, and continuing to gamble despite negative consequences. The good news is the gambling disorder is treatable. Consulting a mental health professional is the crucial first step. In some cases, medication like SSRIs can help rebalance brain chemistry. However, it has proven less effective than the frontline approach, cognitive behavioral therapy. CBT specifically helps challenge the cognitive distortions, like the gambler's fallacy, that suggests after a bunch of losses, a win is due, that fuel the addiction. However, a major barrier is that less than 1% of those who need it seek help. Stigma and shame create a cycle of secrecy that prevents people from getting the support they need. Community is crucial. Recovery happens in environments where people feel understood, not judged. You don't have to do it alone. Fantastic resources include the National Problem Gambling Helpline at 1-800-522-4700, or the Crisis Text Line by texting HOME to 741-741. And whether you're feeling completely trapped by this or you just recognize some unhealthy patterns developing in your own life, you can take action today to rebuild your dopamine system through the fundamentals. Consistent quality sleep, proper nutrition, regular movement, early sunlight, and cultivating real-world social connections. A digital detox may also be a powerful way to jumpstart this process. That said, beyond the individual, we're facing a societal challenge. We live in a culture that glorifies the get-rich-quick allure. Healing requires stepping out of that loop and building a personal identity that finds value beyond superficial promises. And ultimately, this brings us full circle, back to the NBA scandal. What we saw there wasn't just a few bad apples. It was this exact cycle playing out at the highest level. The same forces that can trap a fan in a cycle of betting are the ones that entangle players and coaches, threatening the very integrity of the game.
Now, how can we reduce the opportunities that are presented to manipulate games? Or is that what we do with the betting limits, where we reduce them to such a small amount that it's just not worth to try?
Because it all starts out as fun and games, until the fun is gone and you're being played. And remember, in a world engineered to take your money and time, the most important bet you can make is the one on yourself.
Don't be afraid to bet on yourself.
Thanks for joining me in this discussion about the 2025 NBA betting scandal and the dangers of gambling disorders. Let's wrap it up with a roundtable analysis from you, the intern army. What are your thoughts about this form of addiction? Let me know where you stand in the comments below. And don't forget to follow my gym, Cupid 2.0 Fitness, for free right here on YouTube, where we post content that helps you move better and prevent injury. Or its sister channel, Human at Home, where we show you how to be healthy in the space where you live. Otherwise, as always, that's been a word from Dr. Chris Raynor, not your everyday ortho, where we see one, do one, teach one.